We should be live on Facebook now. Hello everyone. It's still setting up and redirecting, but it's coming. It's coming. G'day. Hello everyone in Facebook land and here in Zoom. Lovely to have you join us again for day 2 of the Superhuman in New Zealand. G'day, Sally. How are you?
I'm really good. How are you going?
Are you hearing? I think we're getting a slight delay.
You're sounding a bit like an alien. Hello. Hello, people.
Amazing. It's awesome to reconnect.
There we go.
Are we back?
We're back. I think we're back.
Great. Technology, right?
Love it. Love it.
Love it. And it's been burning because we've been going hot with all of our amazing speakers. So welcome to you, Sally. And as I was just mentioning, we have had speakers from all around the world so far already on this summit. We've had people in Cambridge and in Paris, the USA, Hong Kong, Queensland, because we kind of say that's another country sometimes here in Australia. And now you from New Zealand. It is always a delight to have you come and share your wisdom and the massive thought leadership that you have to bring to this planet. So thank you for being part of the summit.
Well, funnily enough, my first thing that I wanted to comment on is a shout out to you and to Michelle, because I get what it takes to pull off these initiatives, and all the people in the background that are never seen. I want to acknowledge them. Feel very privileged to be one of the 18 speakers today. And so the topic that I have is the IT factor, 15 elements of owning your presence. And I think one of the biggest takeouts today from those listening to this presentation, because I in my own journey have been quite skeptical about this thing called spirituality. And I was quite fascinated about the subject because in a lot of cases, people's listening of spirituality isn't positive. It's kind of like that woo-woo thing, kind of like, what the hell is it? So I'd like to ground a few of the insights that I've learnt, that I teach. And I think that's the biggest takeout for anybody listening to my presentation today. And what I'm interested in outlining those 15 elements is that your people leave with massive value. Because I believe in the 15 elements that I've highlighted, that if you're human, you'll benefit from what's relayed today. Because I'm very passionate about specifically leadership, but owning one's presence is very different from just knowing that you're powerful, which is the context of a lot of what I'm going to convey today. So interested in offering a lot of value today, and love to have the Q&A aspect. So as you was talking before, happy to answer any questions throughout the presentation. There's far too much information in this presentation today, so I'm just going to skim through the 15 elements because obviously my gift is very much in the live coaching. So any of your audience listening, I'm more than happy to answer any questions they have with anything that's raised today.
Fantastic. And so just to qualify all of that for everyone who is listening, if you're in Zoom, I know sometimes people hop into Zoom, you can use the chat box there to chat with us or ask a question along the way. I'll monitor that for you, Sally, and let you know if we're getting questions. And I'm also, if you see me glancing down, I'm just watching Facebook land as well. So hello to all of you who are just to you, Padma, great to see everyone jumping on. So please feel free to pop your thoughts, questions, comments in the chat box along the way. We'll let Sally maybe loose on us first, and then we'll get into some dialoguing around it, because I know you have a lot of info in your kind of 15 areas to share.
Cool. It just seems to be cutting in and out. So I might just jump in and we'll go from there. Yeah, okay, good. So people, a few things I need to explain before we start. My take on spirituality. Because I've had the privilege to coach people from every cross-section of religion, every spiritual sect, atheist right through, I totally respect what each individual person believes. Everybody's path is to be honored, in my opinion. We have no right to compare or to judge. Your journey is your journey, my journey is my journey. So I personally believe, and how I frame spirituality for me is about trusting the unknown realm as much as the known. So what on earth could you accomplish, regardless of what you call it, higher power, universal force, collective consciousness, God, energy, the zone? What would it be like if you could trust the unknown as much as the known? So I believe, considering what's happened with the COVID situation, if you were unwilling to grow, evolve, or change before you're now being forced to, and the domain of uncertainty is not really a domain that most people love, enjoy, whereas for people like yourself and myself, uncertainty is where the magic is. That is an area that I'm wanting to speak into today, that I believe that things like acts of God and tornadoes and bushfires and floods and so forth is awakening the planet. The irony of the social distancing is actually connecting the planet, which is the irony, in a way that it never has. So first of all, context, trusting the unknown as much as the known. Part of the benefit of today and covering off these 15 elements is being able to ground this conversation around spirituality. So yeah, that was the first thing I wanted to speak into. Second is evidence-based people are waiting for evidence to show up before they trust. Trust and possibility-based people know that if they trust, the reward is evidence. So you, like myself, AJ, work with clients who are very, very linear in nature, who most of their training has been very structured and head-based, and then entering into this non-linear kind of like woo-woo world is kind of like, yeah, get out of here. So being able to be agents of change in that regard, being able to celebrate both are required. So I specialize in what I term co-creative leadership or equanimous leadership, the ability to be able to be the observer of what is, not how it could have been, should have been, wanted it to be. And obviously in the co-creative space, who you are in your human form is limited and who you are in your co-creative form is limitless. I'm interested in leaders. To me, traditional leadership is dead, and there is a need to evolve the consciousness of those who lead. So in saying all of that, I'm going to jump into the presentation just quickly. And without rushing through everything, I'm wanting to ensure that I can give you insight into these 15 elements within a very short space of time. So we can't go too deep because we just don't have the luxury of time today, but I just want to cover off the 15 elements. And obviously within some of them, I might go deeper than others. But in leadership, especially now, a leader who knows that they're powerful will have moments of feeling powerful and moments of not. Whereas somebody who actually owns their presence, they have transitioned into knowing how to sustain that state. That unquantifiable aspect of someone, you know, when you walk into a room, you definitely know somebody who's owning their presence. They're like bee to honey. You know, it's kind of, what is it about? What's that unquantifiable factor about that particular person? And to me, in the 19 years of coaching at a leadership level, these are the 15 key elements that I believe are prominent or important in the context of evolving to your highest potential. This is a slide that I spoke into. It's the core of my education in the last presentation that I did at the summit. The power of awareness and consciousness.
We got loads and loads of questions and comments about this diagram and model. It's awesome. Yeah.
Cool. So the first of the 15 elements, the first one is awareness and consciousness. So all the education that I provide is awareness-based training. Once you are aware, you are able to obviously do something about it. You know, if you're unaware, then obviously it's difficult to actually evolve to your highest potential. So this can, for some people, be quite complex. I'm wanting to bring simplicity to complexity, just really quickly without going too deep. There is a transformative, there is a journey of a transformative nature to master oneself. I believe that the majority of people are living in what I term 1 to 3 dimensional thinking, which is the lower level of consciousness in the realm of what's limited. They're hanging out in their heads, making stuff mean stuff. They're in a default-based world, which never works if you haven't noticed. As a human being living in these past and future-based projections, they're hardly ever present. And so their worldview will produce a lot of suffering. So all of human suffering is a function of what we make things mean. If you want to stop suffering, stop making stuff mean stuff. Whereas the work that I do is on the opposite side, which is raising people to what I term fourth, fifth, and beyond dimension, in the higher realm of consciousness, where the potential is unlimited, reaccessing the unknown world, connected back into the heart space, the realm of no meaning, where the default is concerned, and a power-based world, and knowing how to sustain that, reaccessing the unknown as a spiritual being, which, as I said before, is about trusting the unknown as much as the known, and living in the now moment. There's only the now moment, and we're hardly ever here. So the cycling of the journey, it's similar to the hero's journey, 12 phases of transformation. If you're not familiar with the hero's journey, my golly, gosh, go and check it out. Change, transition, transform, transcend. There is a journey to transcend to your highest potential. What each of the quadrants denote is what is required to be able to transition. So cost, responsibility, and awareness, without going too fast through the process, are the only 3 things, in my arrogant opinion, based on my own experience and those that have had the privilege to coach, is the only thing stopping somebody transitioning. They're unwilling to take responsibility. My reframe is the ability to respond differently, based in their awareness, based on what it's costing them. Most people can rattle off the cost, but they're not present to the cost, hence the reason why they don't transition. In the second quadrant, most people live in this quadrant. They have applied what they know. They have a higher level of awareness to a point. They are more of an observer. They say that they're committed, but for whatever reason, they haven't experienced the level of transformation that they've wanted, nor have they known how to sustain it. I believe the #1 reason for that, because I know a lot of people who are highly, highly trained, who it's a bit like the gym membership. You've bought the gym membership, but you're not applying, getting your ass to the gym. There's a lot of people who are highly trained who don't walk what it is that they're trained in. Having been a course junkie for 30 years, I speak from experience. So they don't apply what they know beyond their default. So I specialize in what I term the default identity. It has 7 layers within the default blueprint. I'm wanting this education in the schooling system. I'm wanting it in the hands of those working with the human condition. I believe it's the #1 reason why people are unable to sustain change. Once you understand your default, you can take your power back, because one of the biggest relinquishment buckets for a human being is their inability to answer the question called confusion. How convenient you're confused, you don't have to take responsibility. Beautiful, beautiful strategy from the default. Whereas the third quadrant, which is the purple quadrant, is the most unquantifiable quadrant to be able to explain in that woo-woo land that people love to talk about. Is that ability to be able to reassociate. There are a lot of little boys, little girls running businesses. Every single thing stems from childhood, facilitating conversations with CEOs who are predominantly who I coach. Sally, why, when I come to see you about my business, are you talking to me about my childhood? I go, shit, I didn't design it, my friend, but if you're human, it comes with the territory. A lot of people at the executive level globally have not done the work at the executive level, and the fish stinks from the head down. So
I couldn't agree more. I see lots of little children running businesses as well, you know, dear little humans. And I always say a business can only grow as far as the leader's gone deep, do that work in order for it to then show up as results in the business.
So my #1 aim is to actually have healing as a core strategy within every executive team in the world. It is, you know, if you do not look at the non-linear practices of leadership, we will not be able to evolve leadership as we know it on the planet. And we need to have that level of consciousness to be able to deal with the evolution of what's occurring on the planet. Traditional leadership will not address those issues. So this is a hugely important quadrant. Accessing the dark night of soul is get out of your head, get into your heart. reassociating back into being whole and complete, to be able to transcend, to be able to access the realm of mastery, integrate back into being whole and complete and that oneness of being. The journey is to define, share, integrate, become. So with visionary leaders, it's not what you do, it's who you become. It's 24/7. Changing your beliefs into a knowing is part of that transitioning, transcending experience. But we've got a choice. We've got a choice whether we evolve. At the moment, within what's happening with COVID-19, specifically in the leadership space, people are being forced to choose on whether they're going to evolve or not. And I believe at the moment there are a lot of leaders hurting, and they need a hell of a lot more support because of the stigmatization of who they are. That mental health usually only kind of like happens at an employee level. The mental health conversation is hardly ever had at that senior executive level, and it needs to be. So the number one element of 15 is awareness and consciousness, people. We'll get through this presentation yet. Second is the power of energy, vibration, and resonance. So I go to a supermarket, somebody asks me, how am I going? I go, I'm absolutely bloody extraordinary. And they go, well, what's actually happened? I go, nothing, I just choose it, right? So I train people to be a 10 every day. 10, you put a horror movie into the projector, you'll get a horror movie on the screen. It ain't rocket science. You're not expecting a romance, you're not expecting an action movie, right? What goes in is what will come out. That whole thing around how many books do we need to read? Be careful what you think, your thoughts create your reality. Well, they do. People are not disciplined in where their thoughts are focused. From the minute people get up in the morning to the minute they go to bed, they are focused on what's happening in the past and what's happening in the future and their present. How on earth can they experience their co-creative power, which for me is what spirituality is all about, that ability to be able to tap in to that unknown realm. So I'm constantly competent in the unknown realm, 24/7. There's a lot of dialogue going on. Training leaders on how to, and obviously the access point to that is their intuition. So energy, vibration, and resonance. Where you are energetically, where you are vibrating, where you're resonating will obviously attract the equal amount. We are the creators of our reality. So we do not realize how powerful that we are. So in the context of this element, it is critical for you to become disciplined. Often people have said to me, Sally, do you mean to say that I've got to monitor every single thought I have on every single moment, every single day? I go, yeah, if you want to be able to be the creator of your reality and have that reality be what it is that you want it to be. So learning that everything in life is a projection, you are the projector, the film is your thinking, the screen at life. So if you're hanging out at the two, you're going to be attracting two experiences. The only reason why I move as fast as I do, and one of the most proficient at it, is that I do not want to be the creator of that which I do not want. Man, I'm moving a friggin' heartbeat, reframe. Number 3, the power of living one's convictions, values, and standards. A lot of people give this lip service. A lot of people may know what their values are, but they certainly don't walk it. Integrity would be a great example. People who say that they value integrity. Well, integrity is not just when it suits, it's 24/7. So in the context of, we were born authentic, we were born fearless, we were born connected, we were born intuitive. And then from about the ages of 3 to 5, debatable on the age group, we then form the default identity. Don't touch that, don't do that. That then forms the persona that we have to the world, because life then is not safe. And so most people are living true to their persona with no freedom to be who they truly are. And the irony, we have to get to 40, 50, and 60 before we actually kind of like get with the program and go, oh, we actually like ourselves. Because the base belief in every single human being is that you're not good enough. We don't teach that in the schooling system either. So the ability to be able to re-access your authentic self, to be able to come home to who you truly are. Somebody who owns their presence is somebody who lives true to their convictions, true to their values, and true to their standards. We touched on this in the previous presentation too, and again, we don't have much time today, but I'm just going to skim over this. This is probably one of the most important of the 15 elements, is obviously the power of faith and co-creativity. When people talk about co-creativity, they usually talk about collaboration. The co-creativity I'm talking about today is not about the collaboration at this level. This is more the collaboration at this level. The analogy that I use, which I love, which most people get their heads around, have you ever tried to vacuum when you haven't plugged it in and turned it on? It's a bit tricky. And that's exactly how the majority of the planet operate, in that 1 to 3 dimensional thinking. They are disconnected, and yet it's on tap 24/7 high volume. You can just turn it on whenever you like. So there's two sides of the equation. I came up with this model to actually prove the irony to those that don't have any groundedness in spirituality. I wanted to prove the concept, right? Because if you are living at a lower level of consciousness in your head, there is no evidence. It was actually, I was going to call it How to Convert an Atheist model. This is what this model was about. Limited potential, attached to the known realm, you're disconnected, you're evidence-based, until you give me evidence, this isn't the truth. And you're obviously not collecting the winnings because, quite frankly, it is a lotto if you've got faith and that you believe it and you leverage it every moment of every day. So this is, if you're in your default, then you're hanging. So this is in a lot of research, people. So people either hang out in confusion. I don't know what to do. They might be interested in faith, but they're not too sure what to do. Or there's complete and utter resistance. They don't believe it. That's it. Nah, unless you give me scientific proof that this is the thing, nah, it ain't. That would make sense because there's some belief going on around distrust. You found enough evidence to distrust you. It's something to do with your upbringing. It's something to do with some listening that you have of religion, because the minute you mention faith, people immediately collapse it into religion. I'm personally not religious, but I celebrate anybody who does have a religious belief. We have no right to judge anybody else's belief, so long as you walk in it. That's where I come in. So obviously, if you distrust, then obviously you're not going to find evidence, and you're going to move the confusion barometer from I don't know to I don't know how, to them being a self-fulfilling prophecy and or frustration, and that cycles. So it makes complete sense why you don't believe in anything, because you're the one creating that reality. Just quickly, wanting to teach people on how to access the high level of consciousness based in their heart, finding evidence. Where the potential is limitless, more attracted to the unknown than the known, getting out of the head, connected. So possibility, faith-based people implicitly trust, knowing that the reward is evident. So what the hell do you do? If you are interested, you are open, you're not as closed down, you got to take action. And that's listening to that in voice. So people say to me, what do you mean I've got to talk into the ether? What do you mean? I go, you start talking to the ether. I'm guaranteeing you're going to start hearing something. And ask a direct question, ask the question, give me a sign. I remember one time I was so up against it in my own life. I was driving along and I was so on it with whatever, God, higher power, universal force. And I said, you give me a friggin' sign. I am done. I have had it. Just in this absolute goddamn moment. I was at a traffic light. You give me a sign in this particular moment, because I'm done. Otherwise, I'm off the court. I looked up and I looked over and there was a billboard. And the billboard said something like, it's okay. You're going to get through it. Just take your time. I drove around the corner. I stopped the car, pissed myself laughing, going, okay, not bad. Quite fast.
Of that analogy. And I'll just say, Sally, and I did say apologies to Padma Kumar, I think it is, in the chat box, was requesting for you to speak a little slower because there are people who are international that English isn't necessarily the first language.
Got it.
But I do know this is also your everyday pace. So
got it.
Understand if that's a challenge, but yeah, we'll do our best.
No problem. Okay, good. So what action can we take? We need to start asking. So I'm a bit different where faith is concerned. I'm a demand. I'm on the court. So I'm not passive in my requests. Look here, man, I'm on the court, ain't going anywhere. You give me a friggin' sign, that for some people is very, very unfamiliar. This passiveness around faith, it's kind of like, how's it working for you? It's kind of, until you get interactive, it's kind of like a relationship. Slow down. If you don't communicate in a relationship with a human being, then the quality of that relationship will be in question. Exactly the same with your relationship with the unknown. If you don't have a quality two-way conversation going on, then obviously the quality of the relationship, the evidence that you're going to find ain't going to be there. So remembering our GPS system is given at birth. Babies are in the beingness state all the time. They are highly connected, highly fearless, and highly intuitive. Then we forgot that's our birthright. We don't need to relearn it. We just need to remind ourselves that that's how we came in. And for those of you who have kids, check out your kids. They seem to got it going on. So asking for help, guidance, clarification, direction, teach me, show me, guide me, start asking. Yes, it might feel a bit weird at the start. Who cares? It's different. Letting go, surrendering, acting as if through action. It's kind of like like a kid who's trying to walk falls over 1,000 times, but it doesn't stop the kid from actually walking. So in the journey, you can either be passive or you could be a demand. Now, when you take action and you start believing it is possible, regardless of the skepticism and cynicism, you're actually going to find some evidence. which in turn will have you actually trust that something could be possible, which reinforces you to take more action. And then that cycles and then that spirals out. Now, the more you engage, the more return you will receive. So I'm unconsciously competent. So unconscious incompetency is in the car, 15-year-old, all a bit clunky. Get in your car now, you don't even think about it. That journey around your faith is what's possible. For those, I think, because most people are being forced into this at the moment because of COVID-19, to actually really look at who they are in the world and what's important for them. This is one of the most critical elements of the 15 with reference to transitioning. I gave up being a human being a long time ago. It's too hard there. It is way too hard there. So the ability to be able to, and I came kicking and screaming, I didn't come to this lightly, so when you've been stripped of everything 3 times, you can't get with the program, people. Okay, I'm now with the program. You're now leading and I will now. So the fact that this is my vocation, that I teach people on how to evolve to a highest potential, to be able to achieve the unachievable. I'll go to places other coaches won't go to get results other coaches won't get off the back of my own life apprenticeship, which is one of the other elements. So the power of courage.
Having said that, we just had a comment from the beautiful Pat Armistead, who's watching as well. And she said she loves your teaching and she's experienced your coaching and still uses it to this day, and that she loves that you're a coach that always holds people to account. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Pat. So the power of courage. And so for me, being a fearless practitioner, one of the biggest benefits of faith, whatever that is for you, is that you lead a fearless existence. Why on earth wouldn't you get with that program? Because living a life where love is the only thing that's important, fear does not exist but within. So fear to me is but a barometer of your disconnection from your faith. We're going to be covering that element off very shortly, but let's stay on courage for the moment. So courage is not about not having fear. It's about walking with whatever your interpretation. Fear is just a projection anyway. When you go to anything that you're fearful of and see it for what it is, it's actually quite funny. It's humorous. So the transformational curve, what would it be like if you never had a bad day ever again? What would it be like if you never had a low moment ever again? Because everything is a projection. If you're disconnected, feeding a projection, then you are the self-fulfilling prophecy. You're the one creating the experience. So similar to the first model around awareness and consciousness, if you are having a low moment or a bad day, you're living at a lower level of consciousness. You're in your default behavior. You're in your little girl or little boy, and you're feeding a past or future-based projection. That's all that's going on. Versus raising your consciousness, being able to be the observer of what is, which is the beauty of the realm of equanimity, the ability to be the observer of what is versus how it could have been, should have been, wanted it to be, where everything's very zen, very peaceful. It works for me. So teaching people that the ability to be able to evolve yourself to a high level of awareness is obviously one of the benefits, is becoming far more courageous. That element, I believe, is integral to somebody who's owning their presence. Owning their presence to me is that you've disappeared in that oneness of being. You are part of the whole. There is no separateness. You walk in those godlike shoes without that sounding how that sounds, people. There's context to what I'm saying here. The power of congruency. Hello. Turtles in the slipstream and Finding Nemo. Turtles all over the place. And then they get into the slipstream and the velocity of the slipstream takes them. Anything to do with conflict is to do with misalignment, incongruency. So these 4 guiding principles to leading an empowered life, there are only 4 things that are disempowering human beings. Fear, issues, problems, and challenges that they love creating every day. The inner critic, that internal voice that beats the crap out of you. And how and confusion, right? I don't know why this is happening. Why am I not able to? So I call that human static. So when you're driving in the car and you're listening to the static on the radio, you don't stay on the static channel. You immediately try and tune into the music. Most people don't know what their music is. And then, if you get up of a morning and you're feeding all these projections and you're the one creating your reality because you don't realize how powerful you are, it doesn't take a rocket scientist as to why you're feeling the way you're feeling. You're hanging out, your little boy and your little girl, man, it's having a field day. So to me, fear is but a projection, past or future. Issues, problems, challenges, past and future projection. Inner critic, past, future projection. How and confusion, past, future projection. So I coach to cause, not symptom. Those are all the symptoms. Stop focusing on the symptoms, focus on what the cause and the cause of the projections that you're feeding, that you're creating. So the thing that I've been speaking about recently is that you're never given anything that you can't handle. That can land like a cup of cold soup for some people. And I know it more than most. But the irony of that is that we are the creator of our reality. And any level of incongruency with that will certainly not have you own your presence or feel powerful, for that matter. So it's such a critical element in owning your presence, is to be in alignment, to be congruent to who you say you be in the world, and stop feeding the projections and realizing, and get a sense of humor. People, get a sense of humor. We have Ernie here today, even with the hat on. Ernie is a state interrupter. You wouldn't believe the amount of times I use Ernie in coaching sessions and or in retreat facilitation. Lighten it up, people. SSD, serious significancy and drama. Life's too short to hang out there.
Yes, bring on more glitter balls. I love your idea of tuning into your own music and that human static noise. However, I do think probably for a lot of people, they're not quite sure what their music is, or they might be challenged to go, maybe sometimes I feel like I'm in alignment and things are flowing, but how do I find that again? So maybe when we get to the Q&A time, you can address a little bit of,
great question.
How do I tune into my music or know when I'm there? Yeah.
Love it. Love it. The power of language. I'm one of the most dangerous women to talk to. Language is my vehicle. I'm a direct channel, so coaching to cause, not symptom. Language is my vehicle to understand what's happening at a causal level. So you wouldn't realize language creates the reality of our world. If we want the reality of our world to change, we need to change our language. So I reframe 1,000 times in a day. Reframe, because I know the resonance, the energy of that is what's creating the reality. Obviously just more highly trained than most people with reference to language. Although I'm not bilingual, I believe that I am from a co-creative standpoint. So this is the mantra that I live by every day. Think, do, say, be, forwarding the game. Is what I'm thinking congruent to forwarding my game? If it's not, I don't think it. Is what I'm doing congruent to forwarding the game? If it's not, I don't do it. Is what I'm saying congruent to forwarding the game? If it's not, I don't say it. And in who I'm being on a day-to-day basis, is that congruent to forwarding the game? If it's not, I don't be that. This trains you to a very high degree of integrity. When you apply it to the letter, you are guaranteed of transforming. You got to know what your game is, though. So that's one thing that people compliment me on, is that they know that there is no gray. I am very ultra clear on who I am, what I do. I've kind of earned those stripes, and it wasn't earned through, friggin' daisies. It was earned through hard knacker. So this, of all the slides, the power of language, watching, if you want to understand what's going on for somebody else, listen to their language. If you want to understand yourself, start listening to your own language. If you've got a question that you got going on, what did you just say? What did the language say? Because that's all I'm listening to from a coaching standpoint. So the power of language is critical with reference to you owning your presence and being able to command what it is that you're wanting in your life. And the application of this particular mantra is life-altering, guaranteed, tried and proven.
Yeah, and I think even being light and playful with that, just noticing and, going, oh, there I go again. Oh,
Yeah, totally.
Oh, there
Totally.
I am again. I'm picking it up and course correcting and reframing, as you say, really quickly, so that you can start shifting your trajectory. I think that's great advice.
So the key to self-mastery is not about not getting triggered. It's the length of time you spend in the trigger. So a minute, an hour, a day, a week, a month. Some people go to their graves being triggered. So with something like that, you will always be out, because when you're committed to something, all you'll get to see is when you're not that. So there's a lot of training, but you just get quicker at it. Yep. This was an app that I was going to create, weekly empowered KPI tools. And as far as your listeners are concerned, I think it's a great takeout today. I've called it the power of meditation, because when you get beyond all of the noise, to me, I've been meditating for 30 years. It is the number one thing that I believe has us get out of the monkey mind. Everything is sourced in the silence. The most priceless thing that we have in our lives as human beings is the power of breath. There is not enough focus or training or education provided in our schooling systems around that. That is a crime. The fact that we're still fighting for human skills or awareness-based training skills within our schooling system globally, don't even get me on that tangent. So just quickly, weekly empowerment KPIs. If you were to monitor yourself on a weekly basis out of 0 to 10 on these elements, you're guaranteed again of transforming. These particular elements, I believe, are key to you being able to experience. So I don't know the space of what your listeners are in right now, but I can guarantee of everything that you're looking at in this presentation, this here is a lifesaver. So just really, really quickly, feeling disempowered, doing confusion, applying the RESA process. Unfortunately, we don't have the time today to take you through the RESA process, but for me, it is the number one tool that I use to shift anybody out of a disempowered state or an inner critic conversation. It's absolute gold. Languaging things as issues, problems, and challenges, reframing those to projections on a weekly basis. How often did you hear yourself? I got a problem. No. What am I feeding? It'll be past or future based. Mastering the inner critic. The inner critic is 2 seconds. So I beat the crap out of myself for a good 30 odd years. I did nothing wrong. I was my own child abuser. It's a very unorthodox coaching conversation. Are you a child abuser? Yeah. But it is the conversation that I facilitate because you did nothing wrong. You did nothing wrong. And so being able to bring people home to silencing their inner critic, for those of you listening, what could you achieve if you silenced your inner critic and you never heard it ever again? I want that in the schooling system, like yesterday, globally. Because a lot of education curriculums teach you how to manage it or coordinate yourself around it. Few teach how to master it, which is what I do. Being able to be a 10, go and find out what your version of 10 is. What would that look like? And monitor that on a weekly basis, reframing your languaging, asking for help, allowing contribution and making requests a lot more prosperity thinking. Try that on a daily basis. Most of us are vehement givers, give, lousy receivers. I know I can speak for myself in that regard. So training myself too every day. If you don't demonstrate to the universe that you're worthy of receiving, you will not receive. So the more that you are worthy of receiving, obviously the more that you receive from that standpoint. Planting seeds on a daily basis, it's kind of like, if you don't plant seeds, you ain't going to harvest. Get other people to plant seeds for you. Applying the de-trigger process and the RESA process. Sorry, people, don't have time to cover that off today. Living congruent to your motivators. Find out what you're motivated by, people. If you want to sustain change, which is my point of difference as a coach, my whole focus is about if you're going to invest money to change, let's make sure it's sustainable. You need to know what motivates you at your core to be able to benchmark every single thing that you do off what motivates you. Trusting the unknown, learning to leverage that relationship with your faith. How often did you check in? How often did you trust the unknown in that given week? Taking action versus allowing external circumstances to sway your state. Nothing externally can sway your state unless you allow it. Oh, that is an ouch for a lot of people. What would it be like if you've got a choice moment by moment by moment on how you feel? If you want to be happy, happiness is a choice, period.
It really is about that 100% accountability and responsibility, isn't it? Which people might say they do, but it's quite radical if you actually do apply it.
Mm-hmm. Damn right, damn right. Taking action daily, this is a big one. Taking actions daily that make you feel confronted, resistant, and uncomfortable, knowing that this is a true access to transformation. As a transformation agent, we live in these shoes. We take actions all the time that are confronting, resistant, uncomfortable because we know that's where the growth is. But that's our norm. It's kind of like, oh, bring it on, baby. Confront the bejesus out of me. It's kind of like, let's go looking. We're attracted in that space. Teaching people to actually fall in love with being confronted, resistant, uncomfortable. That reverse psychology is powerful. No drama. God, who would you be if you didn't do any drama? Integrity, being one's word, novel concept, living one's values on a weekly basis, operating from the state of being versus doing, which we're going to touch on very shortly, and obviously applying the mantra. If you were to monitor those things on a weekly basis, and try and get the ratings up, you can't but not start manifesting a completely different reality.
And I think consciousness would raise like bang, almost like a slingshot rather than a incy-wincy spider.
Yeah. But I frame this as in the power of meditation, because when you get beyond all of this, you're going to experience a lot less noise and be able to actually experience. If you have never learnt meditation, it's the number one recommendation that I have out of today. The power of mindset mastery and healing, obviously integral with reference to owning one's presence. I love this model. It's very simplistic. If you're doing things from a doingness state, you're disconnected. and your experience will be hard, struggle, stress, anxiety. If you're doing things from a beingness state, you are connected and you will experience being in the zone. You'll experience flow and ease and peace. You will
Sally, we
attract.
just had a question from someone as well, which kind of segues from what you were just saying. But Fabi has said, sometimes reframing can be exhausting. Does this mean that I must take more silence breaks? Or how may I get to that sustainable reframing?
I'm going to answer that at the end. Is that okay?
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Sustainable reframing. But a fantastic question. You may not like the answer, but great question. Keep them coming. So the ability to be able to, you're either connected or you're disconnected. You're either empowered or you're disempowered. You know, you have a choice, right? But you got to be consciously aware of the state that you're in. So obviously mastering your mindset and being able to get the healing. I'm not undermining people's listening of healing either. Finding the right modality. I've tried every freaking modality in the last 30 years, so I have an appreciation for what works and what doesn't work. Healing in isolation is not sustainable. Coaching in isolation is not sustainable. The two together, very formidable. Sustainable change, the power of inspiration. Most people are not aware that their beliefs and values, we have both positive and negative, empowered and disempowered beliefs and values that were adopted in childhood from siblings, environment, teachers, siblings, that then forms the behaviors that we have, that then forms the structures. A house has a foundational structure. Every human being has a foundational structure that then forms the culture, your worldview, who you marry, how you dress, where you live, that then produces the results. If you're wanting any level of sustainable change, you need to go back to the original wiring. So when people say to me, Sally, you brainwash people, I go, yeah, I do. But from a positive standpoint, because you have to go back to childhood to do the reprogramming to be able to change the behaviors, the structure, the culture, and the results to then have it be sustainable. This could be a whole day workshop, people, just really touching on it. But when you are aware of knowing how to sustain change, then obviously you're going to be a pure inspiration from that standpoint. One's life apprenticeship. My only way of being able to understand my own journey and those of others is that we all have individual life apprenticeships. And in the Live Now philosophy, we live in one of two states. You know, we're either connected or disconnected. We're either in our default or in our power. We're either having moments of spiritual enlightenment, or we're finding enough evidence to sink a ship that it doesn't exist. We're either trying, justifying, dissatisfied, or results are being produced. People, when you're looking at the model, you can read it for yourself. You can go back in the presentation, but you get the gist. You know, it ain't rocket science. We complicate the hell out of transformation. We were born into the now moment, and part of the work that AJ and I do is actually bring people back to the now moment, and have them be responsible as adults in their awareness to not let their little boy or little girl run the show. The power of love. So down the bottom, I actually don't believe in feel the fear and do it anyway. No discrediting Susan Jeffers. There are a lot of acronyms around with reference to fear. Fear to me doesn't even exist. It can't exist unless you're disconnected feeding a projection. So my two takes are fear is but a projection from a disconnected state from the past or future. Fear is but a barometer of your disconnection from your faith. Faith cannot be present when one is connected, living in the present moment. Hello. Yeah. So the power of love. Love is all there is. There's nothing else. The power of legacy. Legacy is one of the most profound conversations to facilitate with a human being on the planet. What are you doing here? What is your DNA calling you to be in the world? The fact that we don't, by the age of 18, I did a research study over 15 years asking youth, what did they want to do when they leave school? The standard response from every single youth for 15 years was, I don't know. I don't know. The fact that we allow that to happen is an absolute crime. If I meet anybody over the age of 18 and they don't know what they want and they don't know what they're passionate about, I say, go and park your ass down at the viaduct, pour yourself a glass of wine, give yourself 2 hours and sort it out, because nobody can answer that question for you. You know, you're the only one that can answer that question. But the ability to be able to be very clear about your vision is the what, the mission is the how, the purpose is the why, the core values is how you operate in the world. Mission critical to understand the legacy of why you're here. Our responsibility is to evolve to our highest potential and pay forward our knowledge. That is what we're here for. That's why we're alive doing what we're doing. Number 14 is forgiveness. 2 to go, people. The power of forgiveness. I'm very different in the area of forgiveness. I've done a hell of a lot of research in this area. There is a big difference between intellectual forgiveness and experiential forgiveness. In intellectual forgiveness, the focus is on the event, the perpetrator, or the happening. 90% and 10% maybe themselves. I turn that completely around. The experiential forgiveness, where it's genuine, where your past is not in your future, doesn't have you at all, is where you no longer focus on the event, the perpetrator happening, because you can't do jack shit about that, people, but you can do the 90% about what you've done to yourself, because you become your own worst perpetrator. This again could be a whole day workshop. But I wanted to touch on it because you are unable to achieve your highest level of awareness, your owning your presence, unless you have forgiven, learnt what it means to experientially forgive, and left your past in the past, and know that anything that you've experienced, the most detrimental aspects of what it is that you've experienced, are imperfection for who you are today. And last but not least is the power of equanimity. There are about 10 elements here. Feel free to go back and have a look at these after the presentation's complete. I'd rather spend time now focusing on the questions that people have. But just on equanimity, I believe it'll probably be my next tattoo. It is the most important level of awareness that humanity is to experience. Some people term it self-actualization. To reach the level of equanimity is the ultimate. And so introducing the teachings of equanimous leadership, which pretty much is a global first, is part of the work that I do, and I'm beyond passionate about it. So I'm just going to come out of here, and then we're going to get into some of these juicy questions.
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like I need to sip my own water after listening to you. That was awesome. And so much good stuff there. I think you're right. Every single slide is a whole live workshop. And for me, even simple little things like choose to be a 10 every day. You know, are you sitting in playing in your story? I loved when you said fear is a barometer of your disconnection. That is like, whew, amazing. So I know there were some questions and we jotted some notes.
Yep.
Everyone who's listening, if you've got a question as well, pop it in the chat box here in Zoom or on Facebook as well. We've got one here in Zoom we'll come to, but maybe the ones you wrote down first, Sally.
Yeah. So if you could just remind me, the first one was around tuning into the music and the cost of not.
Yes,
yeah,
correct.
So if you're doing any level of confusion, I'm here to tell you that you've got the little boy or little girl running your life. And the main reason for that is that it's a safety dynamic. There's certain paradigms that come with the human condition. And if any confusion, when you think about it, confusion is the best strategy from the default, that disempowered identity, to not have you show up in the world, to not take action, to procrastinate. But if you have compassion for why that's in place, it has to do with some unhealed dynamic from childhood. Sorry, people, I didn't design it, but it will always go back to childhood, always. Obviously, having a powerful facilitator like myself or AJ helps, but understanding, the causal dynamics. We're not interested in dragging up somebody's past, but we are interested. Go and take a snapshot, get the hell out of there, so you can actually see how that's running now. So if you are doing confusion as to what your music is, then that's a choice, and you've got a little girl running or little boy. If the cost is so great that every day we lose at this end, we lose at the other end. I think there's something like 4,057 weeks of being alive on the planet. I mean, when you kind of calculate it like that, it's kind of like, where's the sense of urgency to live your life like today is your last moment? So if you can't move, there's only one, this is bold people, there's only one thing, is having it in the area of the study what is to do. Move at all, what's on for you? If you can't get present to the cost, you can rattle off the cost, but you can't get present to the cost to actually get the shift of inertia out of the way, is what's called ontological payoffs. Stock standard proven in every single human being. If you cannot shift your state and you stay as a victim or you stay disempowered, you are getting to be right, getting to be justified about your point of view, getting to make other people wrong, getting to be a victim, feeling powerless to change the situation. You don't have to be responsible there, and you get to dominate, manipulate, and control. What do you mean, Sally? I just go out of communication, which is the height of manipulation. So those ontological stock standard payoffs are what you get out of staying in that state. I'm not saying, go, well, why would I want to stay there? Because it is familiar, and because you get to be safe there, Oh, but, I want to get out of my comfort zone. That freaking, it's so uncomfortable, staying in your so-called comfort zone. So if you want to get present to the cost, go and do the healing, go and do the work, it ain't rocket science, people, and the sense of urgency, this, when you move, providence will move too. So from a causal standpoint, if you're doing confusion around the music, it is a function of little girl, little boy running the show, due to the only thing running it is it's unsafe it's unsafe to do something different. It's unsafe to take action. Everything stems back to the safety piece, which means that there's something happening at the unhealed level from childhood, period. Hope that answers the question.
Yeah, because it was kind of how you tune into the music, and then Mick's also commented a big part in who he is, especially when it comes to seeking validation. So it's obviously resonating with people.
Cool. The next one is around, it's exhausting to refrain.
Yes, correct.
Oh, I'd love to hug the person that raised that one. Have a think about that. It's exhausting to reframe, okay? Well, it's exhausting to live in shoes every day that don't have you live your dreams. It's exhausting to live in your shoes every day when you don't get to have what you want. It's exhausting. I mean, I can keep going. You kind of like get the gist here. As far as what the experience is like, example would be the athlete who gets out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning. Do you honestly think they want to get out of bed at 4 o'clock in the morning? No, they don't. Are they uncomfortable? Are they resistant? Are they, do they want to put the alarm clock back on? Yes, right? But see, they're committed. They'll shift their, so there's attitude. Altitude is the goal, you know, what it is you're wanting to strive for. Aptitude is your ability to know whether, you know, you're going to achieve it or not. But then you've got to kind of deal with the attitude. Okay, that attitudinal thing is kind of like what I'll speak to here about. Oh, it's exhausting to reframe. Sorry, I don't mean to take it first, but I am kind of like at a level, because that's an attitudinal shift that is required. You may want to change, but at this level, you're not prepared to change, because being prepared to change is where you're committed. There's 5 relinquishment buckets for human beings. I don't have enough time. I don't have enough energy. I don't have enough money. I don't know how, and will manifest some illness. I'm a true believer in psychosomatics. Whatever we're manifesting on the physical is what we're not dealing with on the emotional. They are 5 really cool strategies from the default to not get what you want. But see, here's the deal. Somebody who's committed will find the time. Somebody who's committed will find the energy. Somebody who's committed will find the money. Somebody who's committed will work out the how. And somebody who's committed will look after their well-being so they don't have to manifest illness. So in the context of my response to this coaching request would sort out your attitude, darling. Because if you're committed, then you do moment by moment by moment, and then watch your world, and that can shift in a heartbeat. At the moment, full disclosure, people, I'm a smoker. I love smoking. I love everything about smoking. I'm on day 9 of giving up yet again. I'm 55 years of age. Am I enjoying it? No, I am not. Would I love to go and sabotage and have a cigarette? Yes, I would. Am I going to? No, I'm not. I can't do this work. I can't continue to do this work. It's been my little rebellious thing that I've been doing. You know, it's been my thing that gets me off the court. But here's the thing. I've got a sense of humor. I'm 55 years of age. I know better, you know, but here's the thing. I'm not enjoying it, but I'm committed. So I'm doing it. You know, do I find it exhausting that I have to, you know? Yes, right? But it's just a feeling. So what? You know, when you're committed, you don't sell out to the feelings, right? When you're committed, you just be your word for another day.
Yes. And it's even just doing the next one, like it's the next cigarette, it's saying, not this time, not this time, not necessarily playing the whole big game, but just totally staying committed for each single moment. So I hope that answered your question before, Fabi. And if anyone's got any more, we've got about a minute left to go. I know there was one here in Zoom from Padma Kumar, which is, I agree we need to take responsibility for what we feel. If we choose moment to moment to just be happy, will that lead to inauthenticity, particularly when you get a sad message? Yeah, and maybe when you're around other people who are in grief, sadness, whatever that might be.
Great. So given that I specialize in the default, there is a big difference between, because grief is a part of life, but where the default will go, well, how am I supposed to be happy when somebody dies? Okay, well, we can either be empowered through the grief process, or we can be a victim in the grief process. It's not taking away the validity of grief. It's just who are we going to be about the experience. So to me, there's no inauthenticity around that. It's just what are you committed to? If you're committed to being empowered as a human being on this planet, there is no incident that can sway your state, because you understand it and that you are in alignment with your values around that.
And I think that is the most perfect way to end, is, you know, to be empowered. we become what we believe about ourselves, you know, and the stories and the movies that we project about our life and our future. Fabi's just said, crying with happiness. Thank you for hugging with your words. So there you go. So much of what you said has landed. People are loving your responses. There's lots of loving and sharing going on Facebook.
Fabulous.
To humanity and to us here at the summit. And one of the things in this summit is all of our speakers have generously donated their time. So we super appreciate that. In return, how can people find you, Sally, get in touch? I think LinkedIn's your best way, but how would you like people to get in touch if they would like to learn more?
Beautiful. So I only operate on LinkedIn. I write articles on a weekly basis on evolving leadership consciousness on a Wednesday and mindset mastery on a Thursday. So there's a vault of information on my LinkedIn profile, all for free. Go and deep dive into some of that information. There's a lot of information there. I've been religiously doing that every week since October of last year. And if any of it resonates or anything resonates from today, I offer a 1-hour consultation. Feel free to private message me on LinkedIn, and it would be a profound privilege to dance in conversation with you. So in closing, I just want to really acknowledge yourself and Michelle and your entire team. I feel privileged to be able to contribute today. It is a privilege to serve and feel very humbled and grateful for the experience. So thank you.
Truth bumps, thank you. And yes, thank you to our team who are not always seen on screen, but are beavering away behind the scenes. Much love to you from across the ocean.
Thanks, people. Bye for now.
Bye, everyone.